Hello, my name is Hugo Bernard, and I'm here with Jinze, Mudasser, and Molly, and we have a presentation on hybrid vehicles. To start off with, I'll be giving an introduction on hybrid vehicles and transport solutions of the present, um, before going into the different kinds of models of hybrid vehicles, their viability in today's society, as well as the sources of electricity needed to power them. So the transport needs of the present are currently being met primarily by internal combustion engine cars. And as you might know, these rely on an unsustainable source of energy, being fossil fuels. So with population increases globally and rapid urbanization, the demand for this transport is ever growing. And it is essential that these kind of transport needs are being met in a sustainable way which doesn't harm the climate. So another driver for this transport need is economic growth. So this increases demands of transporting of goods, as well as transporting people around cities and just general transport. So the current model relies primarily on internal combustion engines, which have an adverse effect on the environment through their greenhouse gas emissions. So the combustion of fossil fuels leads to the expulsion of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which has, as you may know, a very adverse effect on the climate in that it promotes the greenhouse effect. So obviously we would want to reduce this, but at the same time, I think it's important to note that we must meet the transport needs of the present. So oil and gas are the primary sources of fuel for these cars, and even locally, the effect that it has on wildlands and those communities and the biodiversity in those areas is very, very catastrophic for the local area. And that said, as well, the electricity source for electric vehicles, and this also applies to plug-in hybrids as well, it must be clean. Otherwise, the carbon footprint of these cars is not zero. Current transport models rely primarily on these fossil fuel consuming cars, and if you relate this back to the concept of peak oil, otherwise known as the Hubbert peak, which you can see at the bottom here, is this peak exemplifies the inherent unsustainability of fossil fuels, as you can see that the production in billion barrels per year is, once it reaches a certain point, destined to decline. So our reliance on internal combustion engine cars must be shifted towards hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles in order to maintain this meeting of the transport needs of the present. So as you can see, only about 0.6% of cars sold in Australia in 2019 were electric vehicles. And I think electric vehicles are the ultimate goal here, and hybrid vehicles can sort of be used as a transitionary phase, a transition between these internal combustion engines to allow time for research and development, as you'll see on the next slide. Hybrid vehicles could be a possible solution which meet the transport needs of the present due to their increased sustainability, as they do not consume as much fossil fuels as internal combustion engine cars. This reduced reliance could be seen as an effective transition away from fossil towards EVs, which, this allows time for research and development to occur as well to fully maximize the efficiency of electric vehicles, because I think that electric vehicles are seen as the ultimate goal here. That said, The use of biofuels in hybrids is an interesting topic, which I think Molly will touch on later in the video. But biofuels are effectively carbon neutral, not quite, but for the most part, and they could be used in hybrids in conjunction with electricity sourced from clean sources, and I think that could be a good solution for the transport needs.
Hi guys, my name is Jinze, and for this part I will show you the models of hybrid cars and use in different environment and how they work. Firstly, I will introduce the models of hybrid cars. In this picture, you can see the conversation of hybrid cars. It is made of battery, converter, motors, and engine. Now, showing how they work with each other. The engine can charge the battery when driving the car, and the hybrid car will use the battery to reduce fuel usage when the battery is fully charged. When the wheels on the vehicle turn, the energy is also recovered and transmitted to the motor, which generates electricity to charge the battery. On this page, I will introduce the use of hybrid car in cold environment. The cold environment is not conducive to driving of hybrid car because the low temperature will reduce efficiency of the battery, make hybrid car get lower performance as the low temperature. So how they work? They must work together because their energy is given to each other, and the hybrid car has higher energy utilization rate. It recovers the energy generated in some parts and converts the energy into electricity and store it in the battery.
Hello, I'm Mudasser, and I'll be going through the viability of hybrid vehicles, the comparison to other models, and how the efficient implementation of hybrid systems can aid in the public transport sector. As you can see from the table, flex fuel hybrids are one of the most effective hybrid types, as they have a greater efficiency in terms of managing the functionality of the car. However, as it uses LPG, which is a fossil fuel, it is not a viable option, as it contributes to climate change. On the other hand, although the human and environmental power hybrid is more costly and requires more space for production, it reduces the carbon footprint as it uses biofuels in conjunction with solar power. Has the adoption of hybrid vehicles been widespread? From the beginning of production in the late 19th century, and with advancements of technology in more recent years, the question of whether hybrid vehicles as an option for the future has pondered many. With only 1.7 million cars produced worldwide consisting of hybrid technology compared to that of fossil fuel powered cars, which was 1.4 billion, this marginally low number is due to increase by 2025, in which it is predicted that 5.4 million hybrid vehicles will be produced. Not only can these vehicles be used personally, but can also be implemented into different vehicles such as buses and trains to help aid in our public transport needs. The future of the transport sector with using hybrids as a solution. Buses in Victoria have begun to be replaced with more efficient hybrid systems to combat climate change. This has led to a less over-reliance on fossil fuels, aiding in transport, and a decrease in maintenance costs, compared to that of using fossil-fueled buses and trains. Likewise, trains have also adopted this notion of using a hybrid system. This allows trains to drive for longer periods of time in places where overhead wires don't exist. Overall, the cost of transportation will be cheaper if hybrid systems are implemented, not only benefiting us, the community, but also the globe as a whole.
I'm Molly, and I'll be looking at the main sources of electricity used in hybrid vehicles and whether biofuels can be used as a source within hybrids. As well as this, I'll also be considering the main advantages and disadvantages of these sources. The main source of electricity in hybrid vehicles is found in what we call a low-voltage auxiliary battery, which fuels the electric motors. This, in conjunction with the internal combustion engine, which is found in most everyday cars, is what is responsible for powering hybrid vehicles. Electricity can also be generated and transferred through a process known as regenerative braking. This is when electricity is converted from the kinetic energy produced by the rotating and braking motion of the wheels. The benefits of hybrid vehicles using a battery as a source of electricity is that there is a significant decrease on the dependence on fossil fuels and thus lesser greenhouse gas emissions. Hybrid vehicles are also much more efficient and tend to have a greater range than electrical cars. Some disadvantages of the battery used in hybrid vehicles is that the charging process can be quite a lengthy process, and locating of these ports can prove quite difficult, and they typically can't drive as far as cars that use petroleum-based fuel. Furthermore, the production of these batteries can be quite a costly process, with a further 9 tons of CO2 being emitted in the creation of the battery alone. Hybrid vehicles are currently using a biofuel blend, or what is also known as a biodiesel blend, as a source for their liquid fuel engine, which basically what that is a fuel comprised of a blend of biodiesel fuel with petroleum-based diesel fuel. And hybrid vehicles are expected to switch to an 100% biofuel engine in the future as the percentage of biofuels gradually increases, which is really interesting. And the average hybrid vehicle uses 1/10 the amount of liquid fuel needed by a conventional car each year. The benefits of hybrid vehicles using biofuel is that the small engine of hybrid vehicles uses biofuels much more efficiently than conventional gasoline vehicles. And because hybrids use only 10% of liquid fuel and 90% renewable electricity, total emissions would be near negligible, and the use of fossil fuels would be cut dramatically. Some disadvantages of using biofuel is that there's a large amount of raw material and money needed in the production of these biofuels, and it tends to be a lot more expensive than petrol.